There are a few interesting things about Kevin Burke's day off. This is the 22nd and final episode of Two of a Kind, but actually this takes place before the previous episode. This actually aired, according to Wikipedia, a few months after the previous episode aired. I get the impression that it was an episode that was meant to air earlier, but they didn't, and then they just had this episode left over, so, well, they might as well have aired it. So that's just something that's worth bearing in mind, that if you do want to watch what was intended to be the last episode last, maybe watch this one before that. But that being said, if you're listening to me now, chances are you've watched the previous episode already. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the episode, and this is the other interesting thing about this episode for me, because I remember this so vividly. I didn't to begin with, but then once we met the character of Gabrielle, everything after that just came flooding back to me, and this is quite surprising, because apart from the first few episodes, I had very little recollection of pretty much most of this series. So for me to then remember this one in so much detail, I think it's a sign that it's a good episode, and it really is. There are two parts to the narrative. One involves Kevin taking Carrie's advice and skipping work, and the other involves, well, Mary-Kate and Ashley. I'll deal with the Kevin part first. I didn't remember the bit with Kevin. It is purely the story with Mary-Kate and Ashley and Gabrielle that I could recall. Carrie is taking a mental health day. She's not going to Kevin's class, which I think is something that's worth encouraging. Skipping class is not great, but if you actually do need to take a mental health day, I think that's something that is worth encouraging, because sometimes you just have to. And Kevin realizes that he doesn't take risks, he doesn't take chances, he never does anything that could be deemed unacceptable. And so with some prompting from Carrie, he actually decides to go to a sports game and skip work. And fortunately, but unfortunately, and there are spoilers, there will be big spoilers from now as I talk about what happens. It's fortunate because he went to the game and won a car, because they just pick a random seat number and whoever's in that seat wins this car. Fantastic, that's amazing. However, Kevin was then on television and also on the news, apparently, because of this. And I will say that it didn't deliver a brilliant message. On the one hand, it does say that sometimes you need to take chances because good things can happen. And I think that is a beautiful message. But at the same time, there were no repercussions. Kevin's boss phoned him up just to say, can I test drive the car? And there was no kind of, you shouldn't have done that, this isn't acceptable, you can't just skip work and abandon priorities to go to a sports game. So I feel like there should have been some kind of repercussion there, while still being able to deliver the message that sometimes taking chances can pay off. Mary-Kate and Ashley's story, I love. Ashley is wanting to try out for cheerleading, but unfortunately, Mary-Kate's new friend Gabrielle is kind of telling the other cheerleaders, specifically a character called Courtney, played by Amanda Fuller. Gabrielle is played by Francesca Marie Smith. Courtney and the other cheerleaders basically tell Ashley, if your sister is friends with Gabrielle, you can't be a cheerleader, which is nuts. There is no logic to that whatsoever. But nevertheless, that is the narrative. And this is because Gabrielle is a goth. And I think she looks wonderful. I absolutely love her style. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I remember this episode quite well. But Ashley tells Mary-Kate, you can't be friends with Gabrielle because it means I won't get to be a cheerleader, which again is ludicrous. And the cheerleaders tell Ashley, you need to do something to prove your worth. And this comes about because Mary-Kate doesn't listen to Ashley. She doesn't dump Gabrielle as she suggests. Instead, she turns up to school the next day dressed as a goth, and I absolutely love it. Mary-Kate just looks amazing. She always does, but I absolutely adored it. Again, maybe another reason why I remember this so well. And Courtney tells Ashley, you need to do quote-unquote harmless prank on Gabrielle, and this stood out to me so vividly. It's the scene in the lockers, in the changing rooms, in the gym, and Ashley is spray painting Gabrielle's backpack. And the great thing about this is that immediately, as soon as she's done it, we can see so many negative emotions on Ashley's face. She's worried, she's disappointed in herself. She realizes the second she's done it that this was not the right thing to do. And what I also love is that after a couple of seconds of Gabrielle discovering the backpack, Ashley owns up. She comes out from hiding, as she was hiding when Mary-Kate and Gabrielle came into the room, and immediately owns up to it and tries to make amends and tries to be friends with Gabrielle. And furthermore, she stands up to Courtney and the cheerleaders and tells them it's not worth it. Yes, she wants to be a cheerleader, but not at this cost. And I think that that's just beautiful and a really lovely message, and really helps to highlight that you shouldn't have to hurt somebody to get what you want. So that is obviously really brilliant. And as I said, I remember this so well. And for me, that's a great way to end the show. So even though it's not the actual final episode, the final episode was, well, the final episode didn't exactly go in a way that I wanted, but I talked more about that in my previous discussion. But for me to end with this episode, what I would argue is probably my favourite episode, because I remember it so well. There's a lot of nostalgia there. We have some really great messages. This, for me, is a brilliant way to end Two of a Kind. I do have other Mary-Kate and Ashley shows to watch now, so it's not the end of my Mary-Kate and Ashley TV journey. The other ones, So Little Time and Back in Action, are not as nostalgic for me, and I don't really remember them very well, so I'm looking forward to watching them. But for now, really, really happy with Kevin Burke's Day Off. Kind of sad Two of a Kind is over. I'm still reading the books, but in terms of the TV show, I have come to the end of it, and what a brilliant way to end that journey.